You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Hey everybody, I'm back, and today we're going to play Catch Up. That's right, we're going to catch up on all the news, and then talk about The Mandalorian and The Bad Batch. Stick around. Hey everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. It is Thursday, and well, I'm back. I was gone for a day or two, wasn't feeling that well. I'm sorry, but I know Kyle filled in, so my apologies for that. And no, I'll be back. I'm here today. I'll be back next week, so it's all good on that level. So, but I hope you guys didn't mind too much. So, there we go. Sorry, kind of resetting things. The ketchup hit the thing. Yeah. So, Triple B, good to see you. Cool. Ed, Jeff, glad to see you guys are all here. Like I said, we got a bunch of news to catch up on, and then we're going to talk about Episode 3 of Mandalorian, I have 10 minutes left in the Mando episode. Be back soon. Okay. So you'll just be missing the news. But Mando Season 3, Episode 3, or Andor Imitation, and we'll go from there. So let's jump into the news, and there is a ton. Like I said, I went hunting this morning for all the news, and man, just everywhere I went, there was something. Now, we're going to start with one of the bigger news in that I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by this, but James Gunn is going to be directing the Superman Legacy movie that, of course, he's writing the script for. And this is kind of the major linchpin that will kick off the new DC universe, the Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters. And this is, everything he's putting together with Peter Safran as the new co-chairman and CEOs of Disney Studios. Now, from what I understand, he was already working on this script back when this was all announced. So he was already moving forward on it. And this was before Henry Cavill came back to play, in the Black Adam movie. So there really wasn't a plan to have him back. Gunn didn't write it with Henry Cavill in mind. He was already working on it, and they didn't hire him back. Cavill was only really brought back for the one thing. So now they had been talking about a Man of Steel 2 project, but that didn't get anywhere. So now, we do know a little bit about the plot for Superman Legacy. It's going to tell the story of Superman's journey to reconcile his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing as Clark Kent in, where he grew up in Smallville, Kansas. So that's one thing that they haven't really touched on much in the movies is the merging. We've seen a lot of him coming out as Superman, him, raised in Kansas and then becoming Kryptonian, and finding out that he's Kryptonian, but there's no real explanation. And so this is going to focus on that. And it says that he is the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way, guided by human kindness in a world that sees kindness as old-fashioned. So I find that line kind of interesting. For one, DC had changed the moniker, the Truth, Justice, and the American Way to something else. It was like Truth, Justice, and there was a new phrase for it. They took out, hey, backwards, they took out the American Way line. So it's interesting that it's back here, but also I do like the fact that they're kind of focused on the Kryptonian thing. Now, there is an animated movie came out called Superman Man of Tomorrow. There we go. And I've kind of felt like that might be what Gunn is using as his reference, because this is about the era that Gunn has talked about doing it. You know, it's not a brand new Superman. It's not his origin story again. This is him in Metropolis, but it's him learning that this is where he finds out he's Kryptonian. Now, in the animated movie, he finds out because of two other sole survivors of an alien race, one being Martian Manhunter and the other being Lobo. And I think it would be really interesting if they kind of follow what this movie did, because I thought the movie was spectacular. And I think it's a good basis. Now, I know Gunn's been seen reading like All-Star Superman and stuff like that, but that's a much older Superman story. I mean, that's a Superman that's been around a while. So I don't necessarily think, other than maybe the attitude, I don't think that'll be the big influence on it. So if you get a chance, check out Man of Tomorrow. It's the start of the latest animated universe they have. And like I said, I like it a lot. It's got good artwork. So Superman Legacy is going to be in theaters on July 11th, 2025. So we got just over a year and some months. So probably about 18 months. And that'll be followed by the Batman Part 2 on October 3rd, 2025. But again, that's an Elseworld. That's a separate world. That's Matt Reeves' little playground. So, all right, let's go ahead and move on to our second bit of news. And this one made me a little sad. There will be no second season of Willow on Disney Plus. Now, the live action series that was, of course, based on the original 1988 fantasy film directed by Ron Howard, it came back as this was an 8-part series. And there were some problems with it, but by the end of the series, I was really starting to like it. It got like an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, and but it just didn't get the attention that it needed on Disney Plus. And they ended up, 2 months now since it aired, they've called it quits. Now, does this have to do with the change in regime? Did Bob Chapek, champion it, and then Bob Iger's like, no, I don't know. Jeff says the Willow news is disappointing. It needed another season to really catch its legs. Yeah, and it was ready to do 2 more seasons. Because at the end, it's got the post-credit scene shows that was just the first volume of 3. I think they could have done a lot more with it. So yeah, I'm disappointed by that, because I really thought they were kind of getting their ground, and it was nice to see a series that wasn't Star Wars and wasn't Marvel, but was still a property that, pop culture we loved, that type of thing. So, hey, Ed's back. Backwood said, Triple B haunted basement. Hey, pal, couple mail day packages rolling in. Okay. Oh, umbrella covers. Cool. So, all right. So the cancellation comes amid increased scrutiny at the media companies, including Disney, which has been curbing streaming content spending in search of profitability. I think Disney right now is kind of working their way through to see exactly what they're going to do with Disney Plus. They have faith in it, but I think they're still trying to figure out how much they can put in to how much they'll get out, that type of thing. So I'm hoping it's not too much of a crunch because I think Willow was something good to try. And I'd like to see more, but Willow will not get another season. So, and again, I liked the first season. It was slow to start, and it took me a while to really appreciate the characters. But, and with the way it ended, it's like, no, 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 we need a story. So I think they should at least do a special to wrap up, the story they were telling. But all right, we're going to move on to Guillermo del Toro. After, of course, him winning for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars for Pinocchio, del Toro is working towards his next live action series. And according to Deadline, it's going to star Andrew Garfield, Oscar Isaac, and Mia Goth, or at least they're in early talks for it. And this is going to be a version of Frankenstein that will air he's doing for Netflix. Now he'll write and direct the pick. And insiders are saying that he's still working on the script, so no formal offers have given out, but he has met with all three of them, and each of them are on board. Now, Del Toro has been developing Frankenstein project for some time and has wanted to make a movie centered on the Mary Shelley story. So it's interesting. It's also, the interesting thing though is that you're not really sure who's going to play Dr. Frankenstein and who's going to play the creation. I think with Oscar Isaac and Andrew Garfield, either one could work. So yeah, I like that, and I also like seeing Garfield get more and more work. I think he's a good actor, and it's nice to see him starting to get more attention. Though I think I would have gone with Brendan Fraser as the monster, having to do with his Gods and Monsters movie, and Andrew Garfield as the sexy millennial monster. All right. So now to go the other end of the spectrum, we had a cancellation. Well, this is a pickup. There's going to be a Monk follow-up movie, and it's going to be on Peacock. So the NBC Universal streamer has ordered Mr. Monk's Last Case, a Monk movie. I don't think they needed the subtitle. I think Mr. Monk's Last Case would have been fine. But Tony Shalhoub is going to come back as the titular Mr. Monk, which, of course, aired on USA Channel years ago. And along with the original cast members will be Ted Levine will be returning, Traylor Howard, Jason Gray Stafford, Melora Hardin, and Hector Elizondo. So if you are a fan of the old Monk series of Adrian Monk, this will be coming back. This is going to be from the original creative team, which included executive producer and writer Andy Beckman, executive producer David Haberman, and producer-director Randy Zisk. And, of course, it's coming from UCP, Universal. So, all right. Moving on to a little Marvel news, but kind of outside what we normally talk about. Marvel is aggressively trying to shut down script leaks. It says Marvel is this is a report coming from the Hollywood Reporter that Marvel is closing in on the source of leaks of a script from Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which was leaked before the movie was released, and it intends to take legal action. So a federal judge in California on Monday issued subpoenas to Reddit and Google, directing them to identify the user who leaked the dialogue. The order came after the company moved for information on whoever posted the then unreleased dialogue from the film to the Reddit Marvel Studios Spoilers subreddit. Marvel is likely to pursue litigation against the person or groups responsible for the leak. That could include a referral to prosecution for criminal copyright infringement, among other charges. Moderators at the subreddit dedicated to spoilers for Marvel movie posted on January 20th. The subtitle file of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumanium, after unconfirmed details of the plot were leaked on the site a couple of months prior. The moderators said that the subtitles corroborated the leak. The script was allegedly in a different language, requiring them to be translated into English before being posted. On Friday, Marvel requested all identifying information from the users that run the Marvel Studios spoiler subreddit, in addition to any other users responsible for posting, editing, or maintaining the content on the subreddit from January 15th to February 15th. So Marvel's getting serious. Marvel is tired of having their movies spoiled, and they want to put a stop to it. And I got to tell you, I can't blame them. You know? Yeah, Triple B says, about damn time. I'm sick of script leaks. Backwoods says, tip to self, don't create bogus leaks about pop culture issues. My lawyers aren't that talented. There you go. Well, I think you can, as long as they're bogus leaks, then they're not going to care. When they care is when they're real. Hunting the leak. Well, everyone going underground. See you in a couple of years with a different name. Ed says, make an example of whomever did it and end it. Yep. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania joined the ranks of other Marvel movies, including Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings, Spider-Man No Way Home, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, that had plot details leaked ahead of theatrical debut. In the COVID-19 era, Marvel has faced an increasingly tougher time preserving its secrets due to more people having access to sensitive information. The pool of potential leaks has expanded, for example, with the need for more visual effects artists who work regularly from home. Backward says, I always have said true leaks only come from your own people. Oh, I've always have said true leaks only come from your own people. Well, see, that's the thing is, with a script like this, I hadn't thought about visual effects artists, but the fact that it's had to be translated from another language, not only would the visual effects artists need it, but voiceover artists would need it, because all of these movies then go out and are done, in different languages, so they're released in different countries. So the scripts go out there too, and it's every time you extend out the people involved, it becomes harder and harder to control the information. So, yeah, I hope that it also so it makes a lot of sense that they're going after the way the information is being distributed, because that may be easier to find. So, all right. Let's go ahead and move on. We got some news about The Mandalorian. Well, not really about The Mandalorian, but sort of. The thing is that with The Mandalorian, a lot of the animated characters from Star Wars are suddenly being pulled into canon and jumping to live action. Contrary to popular belief, however, such transactions aren't necessarily a priority for Dave Filoni. Now, Dave Filoni, of course, is the executive producer, writer, director of The Mandalorian, of Ahsoka, of the Skeleton Crew, and The Bad Batch, and Rebels, and the Clone Wars. He's kind of been the guy for a long time. Now, he was recently interviewed by The Wrap, and they asked him how often he thinks about finding a way to bring his animated Star Wars characters to live action. And he said very rarely. He says, I know people think it's the other way around, which is fascinating to me. But I think there's two ways to look at that, which is that, yes, they were animated characters, but to me, they're just characters. And now I'm over here working in live action. I'm comfortable with those characters. I know them. I like them. And I like to see them around. But Filoni also acknowledges that it changes when there's suddenly a different medium. Katie Sackhoff talked a little bit, and the difference between performing Bo-Katan as a voice actor versus performing her physically and being present on set as her is a different vibe. I'm always cautious. And John Favreau and I talked about who we'll bring in. I try to do it when it makes the most sense. As an example, Filoni pointed toward Cad Bane's live-action debut in the Book of Boba Fett. He said, when we needed a gunslinger to go up against some of our characters in Book of Boba Fett, Cad Bane's name came up. I think looking at that, the first thing I think of is, well, how do we do that and make it believable? Like the character, he's so lean and gaunt in the Clone Wars. And if we don't do that, is it all CG? How are we going to portray that? If we don't think we can do that effectively, then we shouldn't do it. But still, Filoni has been happy with the ones that have gone over. There may or may not be more in Ahsoka, if that's your thing, he says. So while it does seem like he's just going out there and going, oh, hey, there's this character and this one and that one and that one, and that, putting all these characters onto the show, it's not necessarily what he's trying to do. It's the other way around. If they come up with somebody and they go, oh, we need this, and he goes, oh, we have a character like that already, why not use that character already? You still treat it like it's a new character to the audience because some of them haven't seen him. But for the ones who have, they think it's great. Hey, Kenneth, good to see you. So yeah, I think if you're thinking Dave Filoni's out there just constantly trolling to bring his characters in, it's not necessarily true. So, all right, I got a little bit more news, but we're starting to run a little long. So let's go ahead. We'll take our first break. We'll come back. We'll do the last 2 bits of news. Then we'll talk Bad Batch and The Mandalorian right after this.
Why was Princess Zelda sad after watching a bunch of YouTube videos? She couldn't find a link in the description. We'll stop if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's super easy. Click subscribe and click the bell when you do. And thanks for supporting the EXP.
Comic Collectibles is here for you every Wednesday with AR Comics for 2 very important reasons. To sell you rare, one-of-a-kind comics that you'll love, and to confuse AR with old man talk. You see, Rex and John are, how should I put this, ancient as the roots of the mountains. So every week, Rex and John fill in AR in yet another area of pop culture that he missed because he's too young, just didn't have the time, or just really doesn't care about. It's a real public service they provide. Come buy some super rare and unique comics, while old men explain long-dead sci-fi shows to a younger man making that confused puppy face. Every Wednesday from 6 to 8 Eastern with Rex, John, and AR Comics. Comic Collectibles on The Experience. Comic culture and sales.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
What if Hans Gruber from Die Hard had to battle the Joker from Batman the Animated Series in a dance battle? Or who would win in a race between Baby from Baby Driver and Snidely Whiplash? If Austin Powers and Shrek found themselves in a hot dog eating contest, who would emerge victorious? These are the questions we talk about on Nerd Killer Warfare. Debate the most absurd questions you've ever heard in popular culture. Register now by scanning the QR code or visiting bit.ly/EXP casting.
Hi, and welcome back to Hacker Chat. At least that's what it appears to be in the chat log. JD and Brandon are seem to be our computer hacker guys. So, all right. Before we get started or back into it, please hit the like button down there. Those thumbs up, they really help. Also, if you haven't subscribed, we're going to be starting our giveaway very soon. I think word's going to come out soon. So hit the subscribe button. And, Backwoods says, have to run some business responsibilities I have to handle. Take care. Be well. YouTube, Backwoods, good to see you. So, all right. But definitely hit the like and subscribes so that you can get one of those slabbed comics we're going to be giving away. All right. Let's get back into it. This is going to be some interesting news. There isn't often that I get an article that I end up reading from front to back and just kind of lose myself in. Normally I'm kind of skimming them to pull out important information. And I did that for this, but I kept reading, even though it was on topics I didn't need to cover. And I got to say, this was a Ben Affleck interview that I was surprised just how good it was, because he was very honest and open about it. And I don't think he gives an F anymore. And I don't think he cares about doing this or that. I think he doesn't care to play the games anymore. That's the attitude I got. I think he's going to do the movies he wants to do. And he's going to direct the ones he wants to direct in the way he wants to direct them. He's starting his own company to make a studio so that he has a place to film things. It's interesting. His attitude is definitely much more mature. What's important to him seems to be has changed. The drinking, the gambling, that seems to be put aside now. So, but the stuff that's important to what we cover here has to do with the Batman. And one of the things he talked about was finally getting comfortable in the cowl. He says, I did finally figure out how to play the character of Batman, and I nailed it in The Flash. For the first minute, for the 5 minutes I'm there, it's really great. Now, I'm going to stop right there. When somebody says for the 5 minutes I'm there, it was great, that just means that he's not in a lot of the movie. Does it mean he's only in the movie for 5 minutes? Probably not. It's probably anywhere in that area, might be up to 10 minutes. But all the websites are out there going, Ben Affleck says he's only in the movie for 5 minutes. It's not an exact number. It's more of a turn of phrase. So he does pretty much say F Jaws in many words. Brandon says, love how Affleck Batman used his grappling hook during fights. Yeah, I actually was a big fan of his Batman. Would love to have seen him keep going on. But let me get back to the quote here. He says, a lot of it's tone. You got to figure out what's your version of this person. Who is this guy that fits what you can do? I tried to fit myself into Batman. And by the way, I like a lot of the stuff we did, especially the first one, Batman v Superman. But he also talked about, thanks, Dan, your little voice impression, man. You're welcome. He says, I'm walking away from the solo Batman movie. He says, I was going to direct a Batman, and Justice League made me go, I'm out. I never want to do any of this again. I'm not suited. That was the worst experience I've ever seen in business, which is full of some shitty experiences. It broke my heart. There was an idea of someone, and we know he means Joss Whedon, coming in like, I'll rescue you and we'll do 60 days of shooting and I'll write a whole thing around what you have. I've got the secret. And it wasn't the secret. It was hard. And I started to drink too much. I was back in the hotel in London. It was either that or jump out the window. And I just thought, this isn't the life I want. My kids aren't here. I'm miserable. You want to go to work and find something interesting to hang on to rather than just wearing a rubber suit. And most of it, you're just standing against a computer screen going, if this nuclear waste gets loose, well, that's fine. I don't condescend to that or put it down, but I got to a point where I found it creatively not satisfying. Also, just you're sweaty and exhausted. And I thought, I don't want to participate in this in any way. I don't want to squander any more of my life, of which I have a limited amount. Again, I can respect the hell out of everything he said there. You know, he's not trying to put superhero movies down. He's saying that the situation he was in wasn't working for him. And yeah, he does kind of say F Joss, you know? So I get it. And it makes a lot more sense to me. Now, he also addressed the idea of being asked to direct for DC now, which, James Gunn has said, oh, we're talking to Ben Affleck about directing movies for us and stuff like that. Well, no. He says flat out, I would not direct something for Gunn DC, for the Gunn DC. Absolutely not. I have nothing against James Gunn. Nice guy. Sure, he's going to do a great job. I just wouldn't want to go in and direct in the way they're doing that. I'm not interested in that. So everybody who's saying, oh, he's going to come back and direct Brave and the Bold. No, he's not. And if you look at the stuff that he's directed and he's done amazingly well with, it's stuff like Argo. Argo's an incredible movie. It's the upcoming Air. That looks great to me. And if that's the kind of stuff Ben Affleck wants to do, show me where to buy a ticket. I'm good with that. I'm looking forward to watching Air. I'm looking for, again, Argo is such a good movie. So, yeah, Ben just seems like he's done with Hollywood or the Hollywood system. Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? Good for him. There are people who can work in the system and there's people who don't want to. And he's talented enough. And again, he's a writer, he's a director, he's an actor. I've never understood some of the hatred that used to be out there for him. I like the guy and I will hope the absolute best for him. And it sounds like he's got more priority about his family. He's trying to stay away from all the drinking and the gambling and stuff that got him into trouble. He seems to be happily married. He talks, if you read the whole interview on the Hollywood Reporter, and I recommend you do, it's a great read. He also talks about being back with J-Lo and how she actually plays a part of putting the movie Air together because she can speak on the culture of what Air Jordans meant to the culture she grew up in. And Ben's very straightforward about, I can't talk about some things because that's not my story to tell. It's just, he also talks about how you don't see Michael Jordan in all of Air. There's like a back of him or something like that. And it's because that's not he says, as soon as you make Michael Jordan part of the movie, it's all becomes about that and how good of the guy is. And is he, does he look like Michael? Can he act, so he stayed away from that, but he didn't have to do this, but he went to Michael Jordan and talked to him before doing the movie. He said, if you're not okay with it, I'm not going to do it. Even though it wasn't necessarily it wasn't Michael Jordan's story, but he wasn't going to do it. And he learned there that because the original script had nothing to do with Michael Jordan's mother. It was more about his father was part of it. And Michael explained how important his mother was to him and all of that. And he talks about how that conversation made him realize there needed to be changes and that they both knew that Viola Davis was the perfect person to play Michael's mother. So it's a great interview, like I said. So I definitely recommend you checking it out. I think it's like the top story right now on the Hollywood Reporter. JD says, yeah, Argo won Best Picture. A lot of people think he got snubbed for Best Director. I agree. Yeah. Plus, it's a movie that had Jack Kirby in it. So you knew, we were all going to love it. So, all right. And then there was one other bit of news. This has to do with Theo Rossi. If you remember, if you were fans of the Luke Cage series, he played Shades. He's been on a bunch of other things. But Theo Rossi has been tapped for a key recurring role opposite of Colin Farrell and Kristen Milotti in the HBO Max original series, The Penguin. And according to this report, they're referring to The Penguin as a working title. All right. But from, and this, of course, ties into DC Studios and Matt Reeves' The Batman. Now, the 8-episode drama continues the Batman crime saga that Matt Reeves began with The Batman and centers on the character played by Farrell in the film, Oswald Cobblepot. Milotti plays female lead Sophia Falcone, and we know that Clancy Brown was cast as Salvatore Moroni. So this is going to focus on the basically the death of Carmine Falcone has left a vacuum, and it's going to be all these people fighting to get the power in Gotham. Who's going to run the criminal underworld in Gotham? So you can see Sophia Falcone trying to do it, grab it. You see Oswald's going to try, and you know that Moroni's going to try. So now we don't know who Rossi's going to play, but having seen him in stuff like that or Sons of Anarchy, there's a good chance he's going to play an enforcer character. Maybe he works for Sophia, that type of thing. Maybe he works for Moroni. But yeah, I expect he's going to be a good enforcer character. I don't know if he'll necessarily be a big named character. I don't see them using a lot of big name Batman villains in this. So I think we're going to it's going to be Penguin, Moroni, and Falcone, and then everybody else will be kind of, toss away characters. I don't think we're going to get suddenly Victor Zsasz or somebody like that. So yeah, that hits all the news, but I am really looking forward to the Penguin series. I was really impressed by the Batman, and I am looking forward to it. JD says it will, of course, be the Penguin, the origin of Batman's villain. See, now that's a rip on the third season of Pennyworth, which was subtitled "The Origin of Batman's Butler," which was the stupidest thing ever, because Pennyworth was an awesome series. And JD also says Viola Davis is the perfect person to play everyone, but she's only one person, unfortunately. Yes, if I ever have a biography of myself done, I would like Viola Davis to play me. I think she could do it. But more likely, they're going to get Steve Agee. Sorry, I'm just letting my soul crush there. All right, we're going to talk a few minutes about the Bad Batch, and then we'll do our break, and then we'll talk about Mandalorian to wrap it up. You don't want that Steve Agee dies and everything. He hasn't died in Peacemaker yet. But he did die in The Mandalorian in a very funny way. The Bad Batch was an odd episode because they're kind of putting all these big places. Yes, he did die in Guardians of the Galaxy too. That's true. They're putting together this big story that seems to be leading into cloning and all this other stuff, and may tie into The Mandalorian with what we got going on. But then they decide to take an episode off from the main plot. And this is the 13th episode. We got 3 left, and 2 of them are going to be released the same night. So we have next week, which is the 14th episode, and then 15 and 16 are going to be released at the same time, and then the season's done. So it seems kind of weird that now is when they decided to go, let's have them go on a vacation. They're going to go to this little island and feel like it's at home, and that they could relax and have a little peace and tranquility. And, besides the giant tidal wave, everything else is going to be a lovely thing. And that's what the episode is. It's them getting a chance to stop and see what their life could be. And I thought for sure the Empire was going to attack or something. And they did have to deal with some crisis, but it wasn't one that, would force them to have to go back into the world. If anything, they get to the end of the show and they're literally like, well, we're going to stick around a while. So it's a good episode. I mean, it's a fun episode. It's a good character building episode. I'm literally at a point where I'm wondering if Fee is going to end up in a relationship with Tech. There seems to be this kind of flirtation going on, and that surprised me. But other than that, it's a cool episode. But it doesn't seem like the right episode for episode 13 of a 16-episode series. All right. Let's go ahead. We're going to take our other break. We'll come back, and we'll talk about The Mandalorian to finish up the show. Be right back.
Did you know that every experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. Twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales. To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
Go follow The Experience on TikTok at @the_EXP1 or scan the QR code on the screen. Our TikTok is like everywhere else we are, except you only have to deal with us for a minute. Seems like a win-win to me.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. And we are going to wrap up today's show with talking about The Mandalorian, but please stay tuned. Right after this is What's in the Box. I'm not sure if it's going to be Jenna or Miss Jen today. Then we're going to have Space Cadets, and we're going to have Sketch Up with Mog and Mel. So stick around. We got a really good lineup, and we're going to have some fun today. So, all right, Mandalorian, episode 3, season 3. This is a very weird episode, and I've heard some very interesting reactions online. This I'll give you the 2 extremes. I was telling JD about this beforehand. Some of the people are out there going, oh my God, it's the best episode yet because they're taking cues from Andor. Because there's this bookend thing going on. We get time with Mando, and we end with Mando, and in the middle, you have the book of Dr. Pershing, In the same way, it's like if you took that out and took the stuff from Book of Boba Fett and just dropped it in here, it would have been fine. Ed says, nothing happened I expected. I thought for sure that Monster was going to pop up at the beginning. The creative team from Ethereal Comics are joining Mog and Mel tonight. Thank you. I did not have that information before. So yeah. So you've got this mid-story about Dr. Pershing, the cloning doctor that we met in the first season, who the client was getting the baby for so that they could take the blood and basically make a Jedi clone. And also involving the communications officer from Moff Gideon's ship. By the way, that actress you really need to keep an eye on, Katie O'Brien, because not only was she in this and has been in this earlier, she was a character on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She's been in a bunch of other things, but she was just recently the head rebel in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So yeah, Katie O'Brien is really starting to move up. She is not only an actress, but is also a martial arts person. So I think she'll be popping up in a lot of things. Anyway, so you've got that episode. And then I saw someone else online literally posted how to watch episode 3 of The Mandalorian. And basically it's running. It gets to the point where Mando and Bo-Katan escape the TIE interceptors. And then he fast forwards through all of the Pershing stuff and gets to where they arrive with the Children of the Watch. So it's like some people going, oh my God, this is what we needed. And the others saying, no, that's boring. And I get both ends of it because it did feel like Andor. It felt like all the parts of Andor where we were following the former cop that gets fired and then has to go get another job. Which was the parts about Andor I really didn't care about. But it's all about Pershing. And there's some really interesting stuff in that section. There's a moment, and they've shown this before, but it really stood out to me, is that they're in the celebration park in the middle of Coruscant. And they show this, what basically looks like a giant rock. It's something that if you had, came across it when you were a kid, you would have just scurried up to the top real quick and looked around and, oh, this is fun. It's like the size you'd see in front of a Jeep dealership that they would show you how to drive your Jeep over. What it is, though, it's the peak of the tallest mountain on Coruscant. But they have built so much of a city on Coruscant, it covers the entire planet, that's all that's left of the actual planet you could touch. And you can't touch it because there's security guards. And what we find out is that Pershing and Erica, or Kane, I don't remember what her first name was. It begins with an E, but her last name is Kane. They finally give her a name, the communications officer. It's Elia Kane. Sorry, Erica Kane would have been, that's a soap opera. But you got Dr. Penn Pershing and Elia Kane, and they're both part of the amnesty program, where they're now working with the New Republic and trying to help out. But he's not being able to do cloning stuff. And it says, I was trapped was the, oh God, yes. I'll get to that in a second. But basically, the whole thing is the two of them kind of coming together, and he still wants to do his experiments and stuff, and still wants to do his research, but he thinks he can do it to help the New Republic. And she eggs him on, well, let's go, we'll sneak out, we'll get yourself a mobile lab, all this other stuff. And basically what she does is sets him up. That she's working for the government, lets them know what's happening, sets him up, and they're going to basically mind wipe him using a mind flare. And you kind of get the idea that she's doing all this on purpose, not because it's her job, but because she's probably still working for Moff Gideon or the Emperor, and wants to eliminate all of his knowledge about cloning. Doesn't want them to know, because Palpatine was real secretive about the cloning stuff. So she basically befriends him, gets him to do this, and then gets him caught so she can actually get to the mind wiping, the mind flayer, and destroy his mind. And that's the basis of it. Jeff says, Mando's subplot seems to be the bridge from the Clone Wars to Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, it is definitely having to do with all the Palpatine returns thing. They're doing some of that in the Bad Batch, and they're doing it here as well. And I think we may find out that Moff Gideon is actually working for Palpatine on getting him the stuff he needs for cloning. But there's a moment where he's on the gurney. He's about to get his mind wiped. And there's a Mon Calamari doing the wiping. And at one point, he's trying to explain that Kane tricked him into doing this. He looks at the Mon Calamari, he goes, it was a trap. And the Mon Calamari almost winked at the camera. It was the look they gave this face was so great. And everybody, of course, knows what they were trying to parody, it's a trap. But yeah, so that was great. Ed pointed that out. Jeff says, Dr. Pershing, or How I Learned to Stop Making Troopers and Start Making Emperors, and Love the Bomb. Very nice. Very nice Dr. Strangelove reference. So that's what that whole subplot is, but I don't know if it's going to continue or if we just thought we should probably deal with Dr. Pershing at some point. He's popped up a few places, so I don't know if we'll continue with him, if she's trying to get him to the point where he comes back to Gideon, or if they're trying to eliminate him so he doesn't, squeal about the information he knows. Putting that aside, we get to the Mando parts of it. And I thought it was pretty interesting because we see them fighting a group of TIE interceptors. And they attack, of course, the home. They don't attack on Mandalore, but when they're going back to Cordoba, I think that's the name of it, where Bo-Katan lives, all of these ships come out of the blue. And, they fly back, and Mando's like, drop me off, and I'll get the N1, and I'll come help you out. Which, it's like, how's she going to drop him off? Yeah, she's going to just let him drop. He's going to fly down. It's a great action scene because he basically drops out into all the TIE fighters and then drops. But there's one point where they're talking beforehand about how he's going to be forever grateful, all this other stuff, and how, he's back, he's now redeemed, and he says something to the effect, he responds with, "This is the way." And she says, "This is the way." And in the back, Grogu says something, but if you listen to it, you kind of get the feeling he's trying to say, "This is the way." He's actually catching on. So I thought that was interesting. But there's this great fight scene, but her palace gets destroyed. And he tells her, here's some coordinates. We're going to, and they're just overrun by TIE fighters. And they bail out. And what they do is they go to these coordinates he gives her. And they end up with the children of the Watch. And because both of them have bathed in the waters beneath the mines of living waters beneath the mines of Mandalore, both of them are considered redeemed. And the fact that Bo-Katan hasn't taken her helmet off, she's now back on the way, according to them, and is accepted in, as is Din Djarin. And everybody seems happy to have them back, except for Paz Vizsla, the heavy machine gunner guy. Ed said, Ed's wild-ass speculation. Do you think they're going to discover the monster is alive which would allow them to change the way so they can take off their helmets, since the first Mandalore didn't really kill it. There is a... I don't know if that's the original okay. He didn't kill the mythosaur. He rode the mythosaur. He tamed the mythosaur. At least I thought that's what the story is. That could be the original, or it could be the child of the original. And I think that the reason Bo-Katan didn't mention anything about it is because she's going to use that to take control again, since she doesn't have the Darksaber. Or she's going to try to steal the Darksaber and use that. At some point, I think somebody's going to be riding the mythosaur by the time this is done. Yeah, Jeff, I'm with you. I think it's I know the Mandalorians rode the mythosaur, because that all came up in the first season. So, yeah, I think that's the case. But yeah, I think the mythosaur is going to be a big part of things going forward. And now, hopefully, it's not like the Rancor in Book of Boba Fett, where suddenly he's like, "Oh yes, I can ride this. I've had a day and a half of training. We're going." You know, Favreau really, yes, he does. He likes having warriors riding monsters. I thought when she told Mando the story, she said he killed it, but I could be wrong. Hey, Jenna, good to see you. So, yeah. Any way we look at it, the mythosaur is going to be a big part of the finale. So, but the thing to think about is that, where did all those TIE fighters come from that attacked them? One of the possibilities is they're the leftover remnants of Moff Gideon's crew. But the other, which could be a bigger possibility, is somebody who would have a big enough fleet like that, would be Grand Admiral Thrawn. So that might have been a tease for Grand Admiral Thrawn. So we shall see. Yep, see, even Ed thinks Thrawn. Jenna's got the books next on What's in the Box. Yes. Yeah, I do. Jenna says, heck yeah, I do find some boxes never opened before. Excellent. Hopefully there's nothing in it like a rat. I always think there's going to be a dead rat in one of the boxes you guys open. And if so, just how much can you get for it? So, all right, guys, that is it for me. Going to have to wrap it up. So I'm glad to have been back. We will be back all next week. So it's going to be a box of disco clothes. Ooh, I hope the wigs come with it too. So, all right, wrap it up. Stick around for Jenna and What's in the Box, and also Space Cadets, and of course, Sketch Up. We will see you guys next week. Have a great one.
Do you remember what it was like when you were a little kid and you got a letter in the mail? Now imagine that letter was filled with information about your favorite shows, pop culture questions, links to things you're going to want to see later, and even sneak peeks at upcoming programming here on The Experience. That's what the EXP mailing list is. Every week, we send you sneak peeks, information, and all of the relevant links for all of the shows you want to see. Sign up now on our website or scan the QR code that's on your screen right now.